discovery of the old sycamore and kind of getting my photography back on track. You know, the vehicle, I liken the camera to a vehicle. So I just wrote this vehicle of mine back on its due course. Long have I wandered to find this old sycamore. My name is Brad Carr, and I'm a landscape and nature photographer based in Mid Wales, in the rolling hills of Welshpool, the Severn Valley. Yeah, I've been photographing now for 6 years, just over 6 years. I think I picked the camera up in June 2018, and here I am. It's been a pretty interesting journey so far to get to this point, but yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you about that today and to explain a little bit more about my journey. So I actually got into photography following my first cue violins, my first heartbreak back in 2018. I'd been with a young lady for around 9 months and things ended actually on New Year's Eve, which of all the times, yeah, wow. But, you know, I've never been one to dwell on painful events, you know, to become a victim and cry for too long. I did have one evening where I was laying on my bedroom floor in tears because you know, I was upset, and that was really a moment for me when I just decided no more, no, that's enough now. That was probably, I don't know, maybe a month into my misery, and I think the next day following that episode, I thought, maybe subconsciously back then, I need to do something with this pain that I'm feeling. So I picked up my mobile phone actually and decided to take a picture on my mobile phone, which was a selfie. So everything that you see today started with a selfie. And I just decided, yeah, I'm gonna tell a story to the world. And it was the first photograph that I took with the intention of telling a story. So for the next, probably, I think it was a year, I avidly took photos of everything from me lifting weights in the gym, eating like tubs of Ben and Jerry's, you know, I'd like flex my bicep and put this Ben and Jerry's on my bicep, and just, you know, just telling fun little stories of what it means to be a human being, really. I didn't realize at the time the depth of the story that I was trying to tell, in terms of, you know, I feel like we all experience some kind of pain in our lives. The key for me is, what am I going to do with that pain? I don't believe real beauty can exist without some element of pain enrolled in it somewhere. The most beautiful songs I've heard have come from a place of deep pain. Same as the most beautiful photographs, the most beautiful paintings, I believe, all have some element of pain and heartbreak and misery enrolled in there somewhere. So I kind of innately understood this. It wasn't something, you know, I remember being taught. It was just like something that I've done ever since I was young, was to, you know, never quit, never fail, never to allow outside events to bring me down. So being somebody that has always looked for, I guess, growth and the next thing, I reached a point where I was done flexing with Ben and Jerry's on my biceps, and I was done filming myself doing bench presses and all of this kind of stuff that I love. But in hindsight, yeah, you know, I kind of think, what were you actually doing, Brad? Come on. But it got me here, so I'm so happy to have done that. But it led me to a place then where I thought, well, what's next? And I was invited to go outdoors into nature one afternoon with a friend. I think it was the following summer, 2019. And I hadn't really done too much in the way of exploring. I'd hiked a few mountains in my teens and early adult years, but for a long time I hadn't done anything like that. So it was the first real venture into nature for 5-6 years or so. And as I was packing my bags to go, I walked past my younger sister's bedroom, and she'd been studying photography in university. Yeah, I saw this camera and I thought, you know, a little kind of, I guess, touching upon intuition, there was a little call of intuition somewhere in me that called me to go and pick this camera up and take it outdoors. So I acted on that intuition, that call, that feeling of curiosity, which I think is so important in life, is to act upon what feeling inside of us are we getting, what is our soul calling us toward, because I feel like our soul knows its purpose more so than our minds can. Because if I'd have identified with my mind, maybe I'd have been feeling a little bit of fear or judgment, and that could have caused me to resist that call of the soul to pick the camera up. So anyway, I picked the camera up and I took it to Pistol Trader in mid Wales, just kind of bordering the Berwyn Mountains and Snowdonia National Park there. And it's actually a place that is kind of deeply linked to, I think it's Celtic traditions, and maybe even the Druids way back in the day. There's a lot of history and folklore and a kind of spiritual element to this location, which actually bodes well, considering that it's the first place that I went to embark upon my own journey outdoors into the natural world. So I took this camera with me and I just pointed it at everything. You know, I think I took photos of my friend Joey, his tuna sandwich, flowers, the waterfall, trees were in there, clicking away at every single thing that I could. I think I took a pretty typical kind of Instagram worthy photo of like my feet hanging over the edge of the waterfall as I climbed up to the top. But I got back to my house that evening, loaded the photos up on the computer, and as I zoomed in, I could see that most of them were blurry, a lot of them were black or white, and basically none of them were worthy of, you know, what I would call a decent image. So I took to Google and typed in the question, how do you take a photograph? But it's just been the most incredible journey of self-discovery and self-understanding. But I think there was some beauty in that period of my life where I was just so curious and so experimental, just relying on just having fun with the camera, taking pictures of of a castle, of deer, of, you know, what was it, wool, you know, like a sheep's wool where it's caught the fence, and just all kinds of fun little things. That was a really beautiful chapter of my creative journey. Yeah, that was it. It really opened my physical eyes, but also my inner eye to life from a more conscious perspective. I believe that was the moment, that picking up of the camera, that I started to live fully, live consciously, and to really live with some kind of purpose and belief in who I am as a human, rather than just kind of marching along the line, the production line of, you know, humanity, where we never really stop to actually scratch our heads and think, what am I doing? What is the purpose behind my life if I'm just doing what everybody else is doing, marching from A to B, from life to death? So picking up that camera it just really empowered me, to be quite honest, to realize that I have a story that could be worth sharing with the world and offer some kind of different thoughts. And, you know, we all have wisdom that rarely gets an opportunity to be shared, which I feel like what I know can help you, can help the people watching, what they know can help me. We're all incredibly powerful beings that can help each other on this journey that we're going through. It kind of felt like a coming home, if you like, back to a version of me that has kind of always been inside, but maybe was a little bit scared to express. I had a childhood in which I wasn't encouraged to express exactly. In fact, it was very discouraged with the kind of father figures that I had, who were, you know, men, and we don't show any kind of emotion, we don't express, we don't show love, we don't, you know, smile, we don't feel joy. So that was kind of really beaten out of me from a young age. So actually picking this thing up and having this opportunity to express was just this feeling of, oh my goodness, this is me, this is what I've been missing my whole life, that I've been believing these projections and opinions from other people. I mean, I photograph nature as a whole. I guess focusing on the kind of the spirit of nature as a being, a tree in the physical form. I'm trying to focus beyond what that is from a spiritual perspective, in terms of kind of creating concepts from my work rather than, here's a place and here's a time. It's more an idea and a feeling. So that has kind of led me to photograph everything that exists within nature. I guess I began focusing on mountains. My journey began escaping up to Erari, Snowdonia National Park, where I'd spend a lot of time up in the Ogwen Valley, hiking around Igan, Devil's Kitchen, that kind of area. And of course, Snowdon, around the main attraction of the national park. But my kind of my vision quickly evolved beyond the obvious kind of, mountaintop vistas. And I started to look more towards the kind of smaller, intimate scenes where you really have to work a lot harder to identify the subjects and the ideas, the themes that you're trying to photograph. So that led me then to kind of focus more on small streams and rivers, and also the woodland in 2021, which really is where I found my home after a bit of a long introspective journey that led me all the way back to my childhood, where I would escape to woodlands in West Sussex, which was where my nan and granddad lived. Yeah, so I kind of revisited my youth through the lens, if you like, because I'd found myself in the woodland photographing trees, but I was kind of scratching my head thinking, why does this place feel like home to me? Why the feelings of peace and stillness? There must be something a lot more to this than meets the eye. I'd break my journal out and do a bit of soul searching and introspecting, and that's where it led me back to my childhood. So trees have had a huge role in my development as an artist and a person. People have actually likened my energy to that of a tree in recent times, which I think is, that's the ultimate goal, right? For me anyway. Well, actually, my granddad, I learned in recent years, when he passed away 6 years ago. And my mum adopted a lot of his old sketchbooks, and also in the sketchbook were drawings of trees, or oak trees quite often, which I thought was just quite remarkable, actually, to think that my journey had led me full circle to trees. But this love of trees ran much deeper than my life. So, talking about the kind of introspective, soul-searching journey that I'd been on, that journey actually then took me much deeper beyond just myself into, my mother's psyche, soul, and also my granddad's, to see that this love has existed way beyond my own lifetime. So then where is the beginning of it all? That kind of question came to mind as well. Creativity, how do I even begin to articulate how important it's been for me in the past few years? So at the age of 26, 6 years ago, when this creative journey began, I had no interest whatsoever in art, creativity, philosophy, psychology. Everything that I am today has been born through the topic of exploring creativity. I wasn't just creating photographs through this process or essays. It's been a whole creation of self, if that makes any sense. So I've always had the feeling that there's been a huge part of me that's been missing in my sense of self, like a mystery. And that ties back, I was talking just a moment ago about my relationship with my father that's been non-existent, and all I've had is just a kind of idea of who he is. That, I guess, also from throughout my younger years led me to kind of have this misunderstanding, perhaps, or lack of understanding about many of my own behaviors, actions, things like just the way I would behave on a football field, for example, when I would just be incredibly angry that I made a mistake, and all of this kind of ugliness came out of me through this misunderstanding of myself. So creativity has been this just incredible tool for me to explore parts of me, to experiment as well, I think, because we start off just, taking pictures of beautiful scenery, yeah? And then as we go through the journey, it's just, for me, it's been this huge kind of, I'm just digging and digging and digging and like just taking a chance, maybe pointing a camera somewhere else and thinking, oh, I quite like that. What was that kind of drew me to that scene? And then through the act of taking these photographs and then maybe taking them back, studying them as a tool for self-study, which is how I really approach my art. And then maybe reflecting through my journaling practice to just deepen my awareness, but at the same time to then say, oh yes, I really like that. I'm going to take that forward as a piece of me. It's just like this concept that every place that I visit is now a piece of me through the kind of understanding of what that place represents. So I find a place of stillness, that stillness from that location then becomes a piece of me. So I've always kind of seen this, I say always, maybe unconsciously for a long time, but certainly in the conscious mind since I've started this photography nature journey, I've seen myself as a jigsaw puzzle, and every day it gives me a chance to kind of take a piece off and discard. Every journey outdoors, every essay, every journaling routine kind of gives me a chance to add new pieces to the other side. So constantly in flux, a little bit, well, exactly like nature.
Do you journal every day?
I try to, yeah. Try to, get something out of my mind and onto the pages. Sometimes the words flow. Other times it can feel a little bit like I'm smacking my head against the trunk of an old tree, trying to get some things out. But yeah, more often than not recently, they've been flowing, and I've written some really interesting and deep essays, sometimes poem, which I'm writing now. It's just things that are coming to my mind. I'm allowing them to come through and down onto the paper. So on the days that they flow like this, it's just the most beautiful feeling, because this is essentially what I'm living for now, to translate what's going on from here down onto a piece of paper or into a photograph. So it just brings me, fulfillment when I, stumble upon a scene like we just found with the sycamore, and then I can take a photo and then come and sit and write a little.
Is that what you're writing about?
Yeah. But the discovery of the old sycamore, and kind of getting my my photography back on track. The vehicle, I liken the camera to a vehicle. So I've just wrote this vehicle of mine back on its due course. Long have I wandered to find this old sycamore. The practice of photography and writing for me is it's a dance. On one hand, I have this being, which is my time outdoors in nature, which for me is complete meditation, complete immersion, and just living and exploring through my senses, through touching the bark of the trees, through smelling the peaty, earthy, aromas, through obviously being a photographer, through the visual senses. And of course, the sixth sense of intuition too, which I think is wildly underestimated in our culture, in our world, which for me is what leads me to a place. It's the little, flick of, I've seen something over there, I've heard something, I'm being drawn to something, which is for me the spiritual element to the photography. It's being led by instinct, by impulse, and acting on that, and then maybe thinking, there's something else beyond this that is driving my work, okay? And that is, for me, the intuition that I I'm acting on as often as possible. Sometimes the mind can take over whilst outdoors and it's difficult to silence it, but in its purest form, photography is meditation and it's led by that intuition. So that is my being. It might be what you'd call the more feminine side of the mind, the sensing, the maybe listening and, introspecting perhaps. What I then have on the other hand, or have developed, I didn't really know it for what it was until I guess maybe over the past 6 or 12 months when all of these things came to me. What I have then is the thought, the thinking, which may be described as the more masculine qualities, the more logical, trying to really understand things. That's my written practice where I'm going deep into my life, deep into, my family's life, my grandparents, trying to just piece together things and understand. So the practice of both of them, they work hand in hand, because when I go to the thought, that then enhances the other side of things when I go back to practice photography. Likewise with the photography enhances. So it's this constant kind of flow and dance in the way that nature is always flowing and dancing and hopefully expanding through the whole process.
How do you go about, say, for instance, quietening the mind so that you can cue into the intuition?
The actual difficulty in the dance comes when we perhaps become too identified with one side or the other. Too much meditation, too much stillness, too much silence, then what actually gets done in the world, yeah? And I've been to that place before where perhaps I've been a little bit, to just let everything go, neglected responsibilities just to be and to create. So where I'm at now, I'm definitely more identified with this, which is the thought. I've produced probably, maybe 15 or 20 essays over the past year or so. Some of just incredible depth, which has required me to go deep into my mind and really intently try to understand some complex topics, which, I've certainly found myself being too much of this, which translates then when I'm outdoors in, of course, the mind being a little bit more active and maybe me failing to reach that state of meditation and immersion in nature that allows for the intuition to kick in and to take over. So what I know I need now is to restore that balance and equilibrium between the two so that I can create again. There was a particular moment when this kind of all really made sense to me, actually. Back in 2021, I'd been at one of my favorite spots up in the national park up in Snowdonia. And I'd spent a night in the car in one of the car parks up there with the intention of getting up in the morning and going to my favorite little spot, which is just this beautiful, tranquil, poetic lake in the mountains beneath the Carnethais. And I'd been around this lake, wandering around, trying to make photographs, which of course sometimes isn't the best way to approach photography, especially when I think the best ones come through those moments of aha, intuition. So I'd been trying to maybe force some photos and to, I found myself getting a little frustrated that the conditions weren't optimal. It was just an overcast, grey day, and it didn't suit the location at all. So after about an hour and a half, after all of the excitement of what am I going to get at this location for me to kind of have nothing, I just slung my camera over my shoulders and thought, you know what, screw this, I'm leaving, like I know better than nature, right? For some reason, Mother Nature decided to reward me for my frustrations. And as I was packing my things up to leave and I was walking back down the track alongside these beautiful silver birch trees, it was as though, someone or something had just gone with this fog from the mouth of the lake beneath the mountains over on the left-hand side. And this mist just came in and just shrouded the entire lake. And of course, I'm thinking, it's Christmas, Well, in fact, thinking wasn't really a thing. I wasn't thinking. It was just the complete reactivity to what was happening around me. I was thinking, I wasn't thinking, but I'm kind of just sensing and just knowing that this is what I'm living for. These are the moments that why we do what we do, because within those probably 5 or 10 minutes, I managed to produce 6 or 7 photographs, one of which I title Silent Waters. And I've written a whole essay about this photograph and this morning, as well as a poem which I put up there amongst the best of my poems so far. It was one of those that I just started writing and I don't know where the words came from. But at the same time, I was just acting on that morning and I don't know where the photos came from. It's kind of one of those, I don't know if you've ever had those experiences where 5 minutes feels like a lifetime. It's like the moment when you're driving a car and you've traveled 20 miles, but you don't know how you got from A to B. You're like, I'm sure 1 minute ago I was 20 miles away. Yeah, that's exactly what happened on that morning, where it just felt like a lifetime. There was just complete immersion, complete presence, complete kind of being in that now moment where I'm just living through my senses and intuition. So that to me is prime photography. I mean, that's life right there. Those moments are what I live for, and what I'm sure many other photographers live for as well. It's the moments that we escape from this. And I believe that's what everybody who's doing anything is trying to do. I feel like that's what athletes are trying to do. That's what sports stars are trying to do. Musicians are trying to do, and artists, photographers, painters. I feel like that's what we're all trying to do, is to escape the chaos of the thinking mind to exist right here in the moment, which is where true joy, true peace, true happiness really exists.
It's a beautiful story, man. Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah. So moving on to kind of the actual production of photographs as a physical product, that has huge importance in the world, because I feel like we're translating what is maybe beyond the physical world through creating photographs, also through writing. The idea of the muse, the creative muse, that it's kind of outside somewhere, wherever that is in the ether somewhere. These ideas are just, I don't know, surrounded by us. So the practice of photography, it's like a collection of all of this consciousness, and like bringing it in here, out there, zip, and then you create this piece of work, which, yeah, okay, it's a photograph of a place, of a tree, but look a little bit beyond that, and it's also all of this into a story that can stand for, I don't know, 100, 200 years, maybe. A book can last for how long? Yeah. So I had this kind of thought come to me recently, that a thought is the only thing that is eternal. So everything has its lifespan, but our thoughts, like I was talking to you about my granddad with his painting, his thoughts, his consciousness has lived on. So in the production of the physical products, they also give our thoughts a physical thing that can live on at the same time, which can transfer all of that wisdom beyond and create something much greater from, one human life, but actually can now contribute to something just exponential. Yeah, we're so isolated in modern culture, aren't we? Like, I guess the results of the pandemic, where we were told to stay and be on our own and just completely cut ourselves off from our web of life and community. Photography gives us that opportunity to tell stories. I believe that I'm a storyteller in the ancient, ancestral, traditional sense. What I'm doing now is telling stories that it's not just my story, it's the story of humanity, in that we've all experienced our own version of what I've experienced through my childhood years, domestic abuse and violence, and all the trauma, and we've all experienced our own version of that. So it's a universal story that I'm telling, that you're telling, that everybody with a camera is telling. So I feel like we have a duty as humans to share, to tell the stories for the generations that follow, to pass our experiences on to them in the hope that they start from a place of knowledge that can then cause them to outgrow us. It's a duty. We've got a duty to keep expanding and passing on our wisdom, I believe.